I've said since the beginning, yes, I said it's about fucking undermining Trump's second term, not setting the way for Biden's second. But I also went on to say in that very same video, the plan is, hey, if we can steal it for Biden, we can steal it. That's great. But I don't think that's their primary concern. I think their primary concern is we need to neuter Trump's power any way we can. So if you think about it from their perspective, best case scenario, they get the White House, they maybe get the Senate, especially if Republicans continue to not fight for Trump. They're definitely going to lose those 2 Georgia races. And, you know, best case scenario for them, they're gonna control the chessboard. Worst case scenario, they create a cloud of controversy over which, you know, basically Trump would lose any attempt at a mandate, because they were facing a really bad situation heading into his second term. They basically would have had a Trump without political consequences. And that is dangerous for them.
That body in the hallway, by the way, was the clown.
Was it?
Yep. Parrot.
Polly want a hollow point?
This election proves that we can't cut off the head of the snake. We need to work our way up from the bottom. Godspeed.
The head of the snake is at the bottom in this case. Our country's in reverse. You have to understand that. Power flows from the local level to the federal level, and our problems are local. We have let too many mayorships, council positions, representatives, we've let too many of these jobs in red states go to Democrats because they just sneak in, they steal one little election here, usually under really suspicious circumstances, they steal an election there, and sometimes, you know, neighborhoods just go blue because Californians are moving there, or illegal aliens, or whatever, right? A lot of millennials, of course. That kind of stuff has been happening, and that's kind of how we're losing the country. It's not at a federal level.
Hey guys, Merry Christmas to you both. Down from Canada, working in Monica, Pennsylvania, and living in East Liverpool, Ohio. Media in Canada omitting the part where most of the COVID relief bill contained more foreign aid than aid for the U.S. population.
Yep.
Same with the U.S. media. Oh yeah, they leave out a lot of that. The only place you hear that is on social media.
If you hear it there.
If.
You're certainly not going to be linked to those tweets. People who are like, God, I hope 2021's so much better. I can't wait for 2020 to be over, blah, 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 blah. It's like, why do you think 2020 sucked? Because of you. Because of you and your shitty choices and your shitty reactions. Have you changed? No. If anything, you've gotten more fucking retarded because you're blaming the goddamn year. Until you learn fucking accountability and realize that your voting habits and fucking stupidity and reactions, your fucking collectivism, realize that these are all contributors to the year being shit. It's not gonna change.
With the news, I don't know. Just do your own research.
I mean, I tend to read a number of different sources. I mean, it's hard to miss New York Times headlines because Twitter will always recommend them to you, so everyone's exposed to them. And then I'll tend to seek out headlines on... I've always been a fan of WorldNet.
Shit, I'm sorry.
Of WorldNet Daily. It's WND.com. And that's kind of a counterpoint a little bit. I'm not a big Breitbart guy, but WorldNet Daily is a little more... I don't know. It's like a Breitbart, but less obnoxious, let's just say. Say what you want about Trump. He's not a guy... You know, Chris Christie went out there, and if you listen to the RazorForce Offensive, which we're obviously taking the week off here for Christmas. Really? No notifications for like 5 minutes, and then I start talking, and fucking, thanks, asshole. No, thank you. I'm shitting. But no, Chris Christie went out there. If you listen to the RazorForce Offensive a couple weeks ago, he was like, well, I've known Trump for 20 years, and I knew that he was going to be too egotistical to you know, step down and blah, 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 concede. And it was like, first off, knowing Trump for 20 years, it's not like you grew up on the same fucking street. You're both old as fuck. You learned who Donald Trump was because you begged him for money because you wanted to start your political career. Let's not get this fucking twisted. Fucking Chris Christie is such a cunt. But anyway, putting Chris Christie aside, fucking, he was acting like Trump would not resign because his ego got in the way. But if you look throughout his career, he doesn't back losers. Like, he was gonna run on the reform ticket, and then he saw how the organization was set up in 2000, by the way. This was in the year 2000. And he was like, nah, this ain't happening. And so he put out a public statement, not only saying he wasn't going to run for president on the Reform Party ticket, but he kind of thought they were losers and they weren't going to go anywhere, and disavowed them and so forth, and bashed them for associating with racists and white supremacists and stuff. So if you look over the course of Trump's career, he doesn't tend to back things that he doesn't think he has a chance at. He has already come out and said, you know, if they do an audit and it shows that I lost, I'll just concede. It's not a big deal. But I'm not going to concede if I didn't actually legitimately lose, because then I'd be saying to my voters, well, fuck you, right? So obviously he still believes that there is a reason to not concede. And if he believes that, he's got pretty good instincts. He doesn't have the best instincts with regard to delegating his responsibilities. That was a big Achilles heel for him over the course of his presidency. But in terms of like the intangibles and understanding kind of the lay of the land a little bit, he's got a pretty good record on that one. So I would say use that as an indicator. Obviously, he still sees a path. And as I've pointed out, in a technical context, he's still got about 3. So, and the Supreme Court, as I said, I never even really factored in the Supreme Court because I didn't think the Supreme Court was going to be your remedy. They're cowards. They're primarily Federalist Society appointees, which means they're institutionalists like John Roberts. So you're probably not going to get any remedy there. And, of course, surprise, surprise, Alito and Clarence Thomas are the only 2 with fucking nuts who dare to be goddamn originalists. But, yep. That's kind of my read on that. I don't think Trump would still be in it if he didn't see a path, because he's not... Ooh, 1911. But no, I'll pass on that. He would not still... He would have conceded by now if he didn't see a path, because he would just be on to the next thing. If you look over the course of his career, that is a consistent theme. When he thinks that the thing he's hitched his wagon to is a loser, he's done with it.
Generic name here. Thank you for the 2. He doesn't say anything, but it's appreciated. Lucas, you're right about Trump. I have a feeling when this is all done, do you think he will go after his enemies?
Yes. And that's another reason why this is... Did you see the clip that I posted on Twitter last night?
Which one?
Of us from 2018?
Yes.
Predicting what would happen?
Yes. Will the Dems stealing 2020 work? God, they better hope it doesn't.
Yeah, that would be a bigger mistake than losing the 2016 election.
I just have this terrible feeling in the pit of my stomach that it's going to go the wrong way. Not only are they going to win, they're going to overdo it and do it like 70% of the country didn't vote for Trump.
And do it like really obvious in that nobody's going to believe it.
Yeah.
And then you'll really have some problems, folks.
Oh, yeah.
Because they weren't particularly subtle in Alabama or Florida or here in Arizona during the midterms. You think they're going to be much more subtle in the presidential election in 2020? I don't.
I don't even remember saying that.
But one of the interesting things I pointed out, like, it would... Trying to steal the 2020 election would be a bigger mistake than the ones they made that lost them the 2016 election. So, and I stand by that, by the way. This is a massive mistake for the Democratic Party and will probably ultimately... I honestly think all roads lead to the disintegration of the Democratic Party here. There's really not a single path that doesn't end that way at this point. But the interesting thing is, Trump, again, if you look over his career, engages in vengeance for vengeance's sake. He is one of those guys. And he said that in interviews. Go watch, the interviews are on YouTube and shit, where he's talking about it. Like, when he went through bankruptcy and a bunch of the people who claimed to be his friends and allies and business partners, when they all backed sideways away from him or stuck the knife in, he made a list. He made a list, motherfucker, and he was like, I'm not going to be down forever, and you're going to pay for it. And he made interviews saying, yeah, pretty much everybody who's backed away from me right now is going to pay. And sure enough, within 5, 6, 7 years, when he was all the way back, he fucking ruined all of their days. Some of those people are bankrupt now because of some of the vengeful actions. Just pure vindictiveness that Trump engaged in. Just, they would come to him now that he was back in a prominent place, asking for favors, and he just denied them. They wound up going out of business, shit like that. Go look it up, man, because Trump is a stone-cold motherfucker when he just wants to get revenge, and he is making a list right now for fucking sure. Again, regardless of which way it goes, that's pretty much guaranteed.
People thinking 2021 will be any different with additional strains and lockdowns are dense. Real lockdowns have never really been tried.
If it gets to other strains, guys, at that point, if we're still too cowardly to just...
What do you think Trump would do as a response to all this corruption should he get his second term? Oh, well, we've already discussed that, and he's going to go in and
he's already kind of breaking their toys. That's really what these pardons are about. He figures, hey, if they pull off the steal, at least I'll get to fuck them on my way out. He's going to pardon everybody they wanted to shut up. And really fuck them over and show them basically, even if they get their way, they can't get their way. Like I said, I don't think Trump would have conceded by now if he didn't see a path. And there are paths open to him.
How about this? Do you see the rhinos, Bushite Republicans finally being routed in the next 4 years?
They're routing themselves. This is, I mentioned this last week. I think part of Trump's strategy right now is he did this when he went bankrupt, when he decided to be vengeful, as I talked about earlier. He likes revenge. When he went bankrupt and people started stabbing him in the back, first he started being really indignant. Then, as more and more people stabbed him in the back, he was like, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. And he stopped. And he just let them hang themselves. It was like he was encouraging more people to come forward, like, oh, okay. I forget what his exact quote is. I think it's something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing, I think it's something to the effect of, I kind of appreciate failure because it lets you know who your friends and enemies really are. It's something like that. So I think right now he's suspected there's a lot of rat fuckers in his presence, and now he's just kind of letting them confirm it.
Suggestions on any good red pill books with relation to politics. Love your vids.
The biggest red pill I ever read in my life. Now it just reads like a documentary because everything he predicted was true, and I've recommended it many times, is Death of the West by Pat Buchanan. He wrote that book in 2002. He predicted demographically what was going to happen. He predicted politically what was going to happen, not just in the U.S., but in Europe and across the world, including in China. And goddamn if he wasn't just bang on everything. He was mocked as a nut job and a conspiracy theorist at the time, and Pat Buchanan predicted the fucking future. So that was a big red pill for me. It might not read the same way now in 2020 because it's like, well, yeah, that's how it is. But you got to understand, when that book came out, it was like, really?
Can you describe what that book described? Which book?
Yeah, here, let me give you a summary. What the fuck? Go fucking read it. What do you think books are for? Looking at? Jesus.
Scarf of the Strange.
No, it's primarily, it deals with changing world demographics.
Here's
I'm talking
the
about
vermilion bird of the south in all its
I'm
glory.
talking about Death of the West by Pat Buchanan here. It primarily deals with demographic change, particularly in America and in Europe. He bang on called the problems in Germany with the death of basically native Germans. Germany in particular is dealing with severe population contraction. It's not a coincidence that when the refugee crisis happened, Angela Merkel just rolled out the welcome mat for the fucking refugees, because she's replacing the native population who are dying off. The birth rate in Germany has been like, God, I forget what it was in the book, but it was an order of magnitude higher than the death rate was an order of magnitude higher than the birth rate. And when that happens, you're in a negative, so it's just a matter of time. You're going to be in massive population decline. He goes into a lot more detail than this, but he also predicted China's ultimate population contraction. Dude, he hit that center bullseye. People, for the last 10 years, you've been hearing, even on so-called red-pilled channels on YouTube, people are still pushing the false narrative that China are just exploding in population while we're contracting. Bullshit. China's already started contracting, and Pat Buchanan predicted that within a 10-15 year period, China would begin to, they would hit a certain peak in population, and then they would start to go down. And he called that. You got to read it. It's uncanny, and it's really impeccably sourced, too. But he predicted all of it. And this is why I kind of laugh at all the fucking Johnny-come-latelys who are like, Razor's not red-pilled. Bitch, I was ingesting red pills when you were getting your politics from Green Day. Fuck off.
I asked this last time, but I think you missed it. Why do socialists hate farmers?
I don't know.
Because they can't grow anything of their own. It's jealousy.
Well, I don't know. Did you see the fucking Chaz?
Yeah, they can't grow shit.
Well, because if you think about it, philosophically, in concrete terms, communism.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
Communism is not an ideology in of itself. It's not a creation. It's a destructor. It's a negation of an existing philosophy. I've said this many, many times. Communism is just a negation of capitalism. The only thing all branches of socialism can agree on is the negation of capitalism. That's it. It's the only common factor, because it doesn't actually create anything. Ideologically, governmentally. Engels and Marx couldn't even agree on what fucking socialism was. Let me ask you, what does China want? They want our agricultural production. And they want world socialist revolution as well. But they mostly want our agricultural production. Because their farmland is shit. Because communist agriculture, ask the USSR how that went. They fucking basically salted their own fields, essentially. China's fucking agricultural production is total dog shit, and they've been beset by famine. And they were on bad land to begin with. So they want to use American farmland and fucking ruin that. So, here's a question. If you just want our agricultural production, what's the easier thing to do? Invade and have to pay for the war and the conflict with, the biggest army in the world, which, incidentally, you probably wouldn't beat. And cost yourself shitloads of money and shitloads of dead men? Or would you just subvert that? Fucking cough into your sleeve one day, get the entire fucking world to shut their economy down, and then in the aftermath, get a bunch of socialists in power that are sympathetic to you and that you paid off for decades for them to give you sweetheart deals for fucking imports so that you could just import the agriculture at basically cost or less. What's the better of those two deals if you're running China? An invasion makes no sense. They can get everything they want by coughing. Because we're pussies, and we won't stay open. We'll lock down if they fucking cough.
I'm worried that the VP Pence may betray us in January.
He has already betrayed Trump in a few interesting ways. I would not count on Pence. I'm warning you guys. That said, he's a bit of a wild card. Sometimes he proves a lot more loyal than you would think. but he made some really some pretty major blunders that cost Trump in the long run in his first term. And the only explanation for those actions was being loyal to sort of the Rhino wing. So I wouldn't count on Pence, to be honest. But that won't avail them either. Because Trump has caught on to what I've said for the last month, and that is you have to take your case to the people, because more people voted for Trump than voted for Biden. So the more you take it to them, the more aware you make them of the fact that, hey, wait a minute, I don't know anyone who didn't vote for Trump. What the fuck is going on? And I'm not in a red area, you know what I mean? The more people wake up to that fact, even under lockdown, the less probable, the more ludicrous the Democratic and media narrative becomes. And again, what did I say at the beginning? Power flows up from the state level, not down from the federal level. This is why Trump is making the case to the people, because it's their job, it's your job, it's my job, it's all of our job to pressure the living shit out of our representatives, our state councilmen, all of those people, because those are the guys who decide it. Pence, if he's pressured enough, will do it, because he will basically have to be a vessel of the public will. And if he doesn't, I mean, you don't understand, like, he would basically have to, because at that point he would just be, Pence's job is to count and to sort of directly interpret what happened in the election. So if we change the narrative, or if we refocus on what actually happened, then he kind of has to.
If Trump is going to pull any electoral rabbits out of his hat, he has to hurry up.
Again, even if you guys have to understand that.
Drop it!
He already won. He won the election. He won optically, more importantly. Over half the country doesn't think the election was legitimate. And that's a huge problem for Biden anyways. He could literally end up in a situation where, even if he pulls off the steal, Biden controls both the House and the Senate and the presidency and has no mandate. He's actually staring down the barrel of that because he stole an election and it's obvious to everyone with eyes. That's crazy. That's a crazy thought. Actually, I can't believe that's actually something that could happen, right? So he kind of already won. It's like even if the steal gets pulled off, he's the guy who walks away with the mandate. He's the only one who can even have positive momentum, while Biden is completely hamstrung. Never mind all of the, and people are saying, and rightly, that it's all a setup for Kamala, right? Because they've already set it up so that they can remove Biden from office for either being senile or being corrupt or whatever, so they can install Kamala. And it's like, dude, Kamala would be even more fucked, because not only does she have a bunch of skeletons in her closet, but she'd be perceived as a usurper even amongst her own, right? So either way, it's like, even if Trump loses, he wins. You know what I mean? It's kind of, they set up the only situation. This is why we were saying this in 2018 on that stream. This is why I mentioned that. It's a bigger mistake than just losing the 2016 election, trying to steal this one. Because you actually make it so that there's no possible way you can have a mandate from the public. So anything you do, if it's too dramatic, it's like you're full on boog. You know what I mean? No matter what you do, because over half the country thinks you're full of shit and you're a usurper. That is a real fucking problem.
I always thought of Pence as Trump's bulletproof vest. Right-wing crazies like them both, and left-wing crazies would rather have the guy who, at worst, is apathetic to the LGBT, rather than the guy who, allegedly anyway, wants to abolish them.
Which is actually false, by the way. That's actually a false narrative.
It's
he
funny,
never
though.
advocated that. That's bullshit. In fact, he never even advocated reformation therapy for gays at all. He never actually said that. He was asked a direct question about the therapy, and gave an answer that was taken, I mean, a fucking microscopic snippet of his answer was taken wildly out of context to make it sound like he advocated fucking shock therapy for gays or something, but he didn't. He didn't. It's clear from the full context of his remarks that he didn't, but it's a lie that's followed him around. I mean, it's a funny meme, but it's bullshit.
What do you think the Democrats and the media are going to do in Trump's second term?
They're gonna do what Republicans and conservatives would have done under Biden presidency. Delegitimize him, you know. Like I said in my first post-election video, it's kind of a no-lose situation, and yet they perceive it as a no-lose situation because they figure if we can get Biden in there, that's great. If we can't, then hey, at least we take the wind out of Trump's sails, and he won't have the mandate that we're terrified of. Democrats are terrified of a Trump second term with a mandate, because that's what he was cruising toward. If they had allowed the landslide Trump election result to stand, they would have been looking at Trump without political consequences and gaining seats in the Senate and House. That is some scary shit for them. That's some scary, scary shit. And they probably fixed some of those House races. Some. I don't think they fixed a lot of them. Because for a variety of reasons, most of the phony votes are going to be one candidate ballots. This tends to be how fraud is, because the more candidates you fix an election for, the more challenges you open yourself up to in court or, you know, through electoral remedy, which may or may not exist after the Supreme Court behaved the way they have. But I think mostly they've reserved their election fixing at this point to the presidency and the Senate. They were really concerned about the Senate. House races, they kind of left alone. That's why Republicans did so well there. Because the more you fix, the more potential challenges you have.
Got my copy of The Long Moonlight today. Should I move to Arizona to help the Patriots out, since Florida seems safe from the citizens of Dumbfuckistan?
For now, I mean, I don't think it's that Florida is drifting red or Arizona is drifting blue. I think it's just Arizona allowed the fraud, didn't have any safeguards against it, while Florida had safeguards against the fraud because of their history of electoral fraud. If you look at the 2018 midterms, when they still had some corrupt politicians in Broward County counting votes and shit, you saw a lot of the same shenanigans that happened in Arizona. But, crucially, they got rid of those officials between 2018 and 2020. And suddenly, the election was clean and there was a massive Republican shift. Wouldn't you know it? Huh. It makes you wonder if Florida was ever drifting blue, or if it was ever really all that competitive, or if it was just a bunch of corrupt assholes in Broward County who were counting the votes and counting it for the people they liked. Makes you wonder. Also makes you wonder if Arizona's actually shifting blue, or if it's people in positions of power who are, you know, 1 for you, 6 for me. One for you, 6 for me.
It's amazing how an almost entirely red state has a Democratic governor and mayor and...
Well, not governor. We have a Republican governor in theory, but Phoenix has a Democratic mayor and has since 2004, which is bizarre because the last Republican mayor, Skip Rimza, was very popular. He did a good job. He was not a guy that everyone hated. Every Democratic mayor since then has had a bunch of controversies attached to him, and yet they keep winning. They keep winning. There was no dissatisfaction with Republican leadership in Phoenix in terms of the mayoral office, and yet he just magically, Republicans started losing in Phoenix out of nowhere. And right around the time a Democratic governor took over the state in a really suspicious election. I've talked about that one in the past. If you want to talk about some election shenanigans, there was some serious bullshit that went down in the 2002 governor's race here in Arizona, where basically the Democrats ran a stalking horse candidate who pretended to be conservative to split the Republican vote, and then years later it turned out, he was a Democratic operative for years, the whole time, and he just pretended to be conservative so that he could split the votes so that a Democrat could finally win the governor's mansion. in Arizona, which is exactly what happened. Fucking scummy bullshit.